Today I have the iPhone 15 Pro and the Apple Watch Ultra 2, and I'm going to go over both now that I've had some time with them. Now, both of these devices were minor upgrades from their predecessors. As always, we got a bump in speed and cameras. But don't get me wrong, am I excited about some of these new features that these both have? Absolutely. Let's first dive into the iPhone 15. If you are interested in the Apple Watch Ultra 2, obviously feel free to skip ahead. So here with me is the iPhone 15 Pro, and it's not the Max version, and I got this in black titanium. In my last two Pro iPhones, I believe the 12 and the 14, I went with the green and the blue and figured it was time to go back to the dark side. The finish is fantastic, and because it is brushed, you won't show as much in the fingerprint department. Though I don't imagine most people carrying around a $1,000 phone naked. Though I know those people are out there. Gosh, you guys are so brave. In the case department, I went with a new Apple FineWoven case, which is replacing their leather case from their lineup, which kind of makes me mad. I love the quality and durability of the leather and the patina that it acquired over time. And I think I bought them on every Pro phone I've had for as long as they've been available. But I will say, the FineWoven case is no slouch either. I know they are proud to have this made mostly from recycled materials, which I agree is a big win, and it fits the iPhone quite well like all of their cases do. I went with the evergreen color, and I'll say the material is soft, definitely a light texture on it. It's not too slippery, but it's also not too sticky either, like the silicone case, which I'm not a huge fan of as it doesn't feel like I can get it in and out of my pocket that easily. Most importantly, the case has MagSafe, which means I can put the phone on my wireless charger or on the mount in my truck on the dash, and I don't need to worry about other gripping contraptions or wires to have this phone work in my life. When you first pick up the iPhone 15 Pro, you may notice that it has lost a little weight. With Apple choosing to switch from stainless steel to titanium for the frame of the phone, not only did it become lighter, but also stronger. Now, I'm not positive if everyone would notice this right away, and I'm sure you could trick me plenty with having me guess if my old iPhone 14 Pro is heavier or lighter, but when you start to shift it around in your hand, or pocket and unpocket it, that's when it sort of hits me, and there's a reason for that. So I was reading this post from an engineer who described that the reason it feels lighter in the hand is because what is called the moment of inertia, and that's been changed. So because Apple reduced the mass on the outside of the metal frame by switching from stainless steel to titanium, the amount of torque to rotate the phone in your hand has also been reduced. I say it's pretty interesting if you ask me, and while I'm no engineer, the concept makes perfect sense. While we are on the outside of the phone, another change we have is the action button. No longer do we have the usual rocker switch from every past iPhone model since the beginning to turn the sound or ringer on and off, but now we have a pressable switch that is much like the action button that Apple introduced on the Apple Watch Ultra last year, which now is part of the iPhone. Now, if you're part of the 3% of people that go between having the ringer on and off, you're still in luck, as the phone by default will still allow you to turn on and off the ringer via the switch, and in doing so, you will get a pleasant haptic feedback that tells you when the action just has taken place. If you are the other 97% of people, you may be interested in the other features the action button has to offer. For example, right now I'm using it to activate the flashlight, as I always seem to be using the flashlight on the iPhone, and usually in the moment I need it. I may already be down an arm or fumbling in the dark, and I don't want to have to turn on my screen and then use my thumbs to hit the shortcut that Apple has on the bottom of the display. Just this morning, I woke up early to work on this video, and after getting out of bed, I clicked the action button to find my clothes before heading downstairs, and not to disturb my wife, and I'll have to say, it was extremely satisfying, just hitting a button like you would on a normal flashlight and getting that haptic feedback. If only Apple would have done this sooner. Having said that, it is still not the end of the world to access the flashlight from the screen, and it is something I could have lived with. Other actions include opening the camera, which again is a shortcut on the lock screen. So you sort of have to decide what is most important to you between the action button and the camera or flashlight widgets on the lock screen. If you were smarter than me, you'd probably say, hey Brandon, I already have the camera and flashlight widgets on the lock screen. Why wouldn't I use the action button for a third shortcut? And my answer would be, yeah, that's probably what you should do. Other options include changing your focus state. So like for example, if you wanted to go into a do not disturb mode to silence notifications and filter out distractions, or maybe you want to jump straight to making a voice memo like you have a little recorder in your pocket at all times. There's also a magnifier, so you can use your phone like a little magnifying glass to zoom in on things around you, or other accessibility options if that is something that could be helpful for you. Lastly, you can use the action button for shortcuts, and this is the area that actually interests me the most. Now I'll admit, I have not played with shortcuts enough, but if you want to open apps on the fly, set timers, play music, start a new note, or even more advanced features like turning on the lights in your office, the world is sort of your oyster when it comes to using shortcuts via the action button. If shortcuts are something that interests you, feel free to hit subscribe if you haven't already, as I can promise you that they are a direction I'm going to go down further on all Apple devices for future videos. So if you don't want to miss that, well, you know what to do. And again, the comments are my guiding force, so please let me know what you want to see more of, and I'm a man of the people. Moving on to one of the most anticipated features, USB-C. Yes, Android fans are ripping us apart at every turn.
Well, that's not very innovative, Apple. We had that many years ago.
And you know what? You guys are right. We have been missing out on a basic yet commonplace luxury for too long. But hey, it's finally here. Goodbye unnecessary cables. Hello faster transfer speeds. I guess if anyone plugs in phones anymore for data. I guess on that topic, if you are one of those shooting 4K 60 frames per second ProRes video, like this puppy now can do, you can actually use the USB-C port to put the media directly on an external drive, which is huge for the video world because those files are massive. So yeah, it really may matter to some to get data through that USB port. Charging will definitely be better, and hopefully the world keeps moving to USB-C and we can move on with our lives. Interestingly enough, we also get reverse charging. Need to top off your AirPods or Apple Watch? You can now plug the cable into your device and charge away. I guess I won't see myself doing that all too often, especially at the expense of my phone, but I can tell you it sure is nice to have options when things hit the fan. Lastly, I'll touch briefly on the cameras. In the 15 Pro, compared to last year's model, we do get a bigger camera sensor, which is going to help with even capturing more detail. There have also been some software updates. No longer do you have to select portrait mode before taking a picture, as now you can edit the photo later to really make the subject stand out. You can also change the focal length from 24 to 28 or 35 millimeters on the main lens, which will dictate how much of the surrounding scene the camera captures. In all, good progress from Apple on the iPhone 15 Pro, and a device I look forward to using more, especially with trying out the cameras. Now let's move on to the Apple Watch Ultra 2. So in full transparency, unlike the iPhone, where I've had Pro model after Pro model and understand them pretty well inside and out, this is my first Ultra model of the watch, as I'm coming from the Series 6, and let me tell you, this was love at first sight. I knew with my little bird wrist it wasn't going to look as good as it may with other people, but the thought of it looking too big quickly vanished when I saw the design and the utility. Attached to it, I have the olive Alpine loop, which sort of is this stretchy webbing that folds around itself and is closed with this G-hook. Now, while I'm disappointed this did not come in orange this year as it did last year, I still think the olive color looks really nice. One might wonder if it is as secure as the other types of bands given the hook, but I can tell you with confidence it is not going anywhere. Interestingly enough, I was cutting the lawn last night with it, and I sort of had this revelation. As I went over my bumpy lawn and the hard plastic wheels were hitting every dry nook and cranny of the yard, this watch was jumping all around on my wrist. I eventually stopped, cinched it down one more webbing slot, and that fixed a lot of it, but there was still a lot of action with the face. So, I think there's two things going on here and why it was so shaky in the first place. One, this band isn't as stretchy as my old sport loop, and I don't think it could absorb the vibration the same way with how it pulled the watch against my wrist. Second, the watch face is simply bigger and heavier, so perhaps a little less controllable. I really can't imagine many other situations where this would be a problem, and it does feel really solid and steady on my wrist. At least for me personally, from never owning an Ultra watch before, I'm excited to have another action button for quick shortcuts. On the Ultra watch, we have a way to start a workout, turn on a flashlight, which is the one I have set, start the dive computer, do things with waypoints and backtrack your locations, use a stopwatch, start a workout, and run a shortcut. For me, just like on the iPhone, when you need light, you need light. Thus, that's why I set it up so with the click of the button, I can have illumination. The display is incredible. For one, it is large, and I know, at least for me, my aging eyes appreciate the extra screen real estate along with the space to properly tap items with my fingers, which makes navigation of the watch that much better. The screen is bright outdoors in full sun, and they have moved the brightness of the screen from 2000 nits on the first gen to 3000 nits on this gen, and from my short experience, you are never not going to be able to see your screen. Is that a double negative? And when it's dark, say this morning when I was putting together these notes, it goes into this dark red mode to save your night vision, which I really appreciate. I'm often camping or hunting, and nothing is more annoying than walking to see the moon and the stars over the lake by your campsite and to be blinded from your watch while checking the time. My last note on the display is the sapphire glass. I've seen many other owners of the Ultra watch show no damage or scratches on this display, and from personally owning a mechanical watch with the sapphire glass and beating the heck out of it for years with not a single mark, I'm confident this is going to age very well compared to my Series 6 and every other Apple Watch I've owned, which I think had this Ion X glass, which it did okay. But I'm active and I do a lot of house projects, get under vehicles or whatever, and I'm not going to be one of those people taking on and off the watch in order to live my daily life. On the Series 6, the scratches definitely added up over the years, which sort of took away the clarity of the screen. Thankfully with the Ultra, that shouldn't be a concern any longer. I guess one more note as I stare at the screen and that someone else immediately noticed was how much information you can fit on the display. Right now I'm using the modular Ultra screen and I must have 9 or so widgets on the screen. I have temperature, compass, activity rings, sunrise and sunset times, UV index, battery level, the elevation up the size, which is pretty cool. There's a lot here, and of course you can customize the widgets and colors to your heart's desire, or move on to Apple's large catalog of other watch faces. Another new feature that I am gaining from moving to the Ultra watch is an alarm for emergencies. I'm hoping this is a feature I never have to use, but being a past Eagle Scout, a bit of extra preparedness certainly goes a long way. Apple says that it can be heard from 600 feet away and that it has 2 unique high-pitched sounds generally not heard in your normal environment in order to stand out when needed. Tying up a few more points, they upgraded the SIP to the S9 for the new watches. SIP standing for System in Package, which is going to be your CPU, RAM, storage, everything integrated into a single compact unit. Compared to the regular Apple Watch, the Ultra uses a dual band GPS, which is going to provide greater accuracy for all your hikes, runs, or whatever activity you may be doing. There is double the battery life from the Series 9, which was at 18 hours, up to 36 for the Ultra. So for me, what this does is it reduces the battery anxiety. If I happen to use the watch heavily during the day, whether for exercise or mapping. Now, I hardly ever had to worry about my Series 6 dying on me, but it's nice to have that additional buffer, especially as the battery becomes less efficient over the years. Another plus is for sleep tracking. People who have the Ultra watch should have no problem having a full day of normal use, tracking their sleep at night, and maybe falling into a routine where then you can charge it in the morning while showering and getting ready for the day. With this system, you can utilize the watch for everything that it offers, both day and night. The Ultra has dual speakers and a 3-mic array compared to the single speaker and mic on the regular Apple Watch. So hearing and being heard on the Ultra watch is going to be much clearer. So if you're running around and taking calls on your watch in noisy environments, for example, this is going to be a major plus. There's also a depth gauge and a water temperature sensor, as well as a pre-installed depth app for all you divers out there. There are dozens of us. You'll appreciate the extra hardware. And lastly, for me, it's the design aesthetic. I do really like the chunkiness, the built-in crown guard, the sharp edges, the contrast of the orange used in the titanium. It's a beautiful design, and after many years of owning the series watches, is a welcome change for me, for someone who kind of gets bored with the same old thing year after year. And yeah, that's my take on both the Apple Watch Ultra 2 as well as the iPhone 15 Pro. Certainly incremental updates, but welcome updates for me and my everyday life, and I'm really excited to see how these devices continue to complement my lifestyle and what I want out of them. Hope this video was informational and helped if you are in the market or trying to get the most out of your devices you already have, and I hope to see you in the next video. Have a great day.